either of you guys upset about the comments Whoopi Goldberg made? Should she be
Jeff's
canceled?
Jewish. Jeff's Jewish, actually. He wants to say something.
Okay.
I don't think she should be canceled, because I think TV personalities should be allowed to, express in a way that is not deemed offensive. But because we live in a hypersensitive society, it's the slightest thing becomes offensive.
We all used to say the N-word. Oh my gosh, like that was like some regular.
Yeah, but I found that to be weird. Moving to New York at 6 years old, and I heard kids saying that on the schoolyard. I never heard that until I came to New York, and people were saying that in school, like it was a normal thing. And I was like, what, really? Everybody just uses it like that?
What do you mean you never heard? When you were from wherever you came from originally, you guys didn't use that word? Black people.
He's a Mexican.
Yeah, I was.
Oh yeah, I
you know what? You probably offended people for calling me Mexican. Yeah, I came to New York from New Mexico. We didn't hear that in the schoolyard. I mean, we had a few racist incidents, but there was no regular talk about, yo, what's up? All of that. It wasn't like that.
Well, let it be known, there are grades of blackness, and I think it's all about how much we buy into the system.
I never had collard greens until I went to your house. I didn't grow up until we were kids and I started going to your house. I didn't grow up with like southern black home cooking.
And Rego, forget it, like totally. I remember going to his house. Remember that house he used to have? It was like Mr. Belvedere. This cat had like servants.
Yeah, it was huge.
Nah, when I was young, like it's actually true. When my father was alive, before I met y'all, a long time before that, I really did have like a driver.
I'm trying to drive you to the stove.
And a housemaid and things like that. My dad was a diplomat. And then when my father passed away, I wouldn't say we lived in like abject poverty, but we lived in some, lower income areas. I've seen blackness from all kinds of different sides.
The mainstream kind of feeds this idea of what black men are, black women are, a black young man and a black young woman. We were allowed to be a certain grade of, I don't know how to say, a grade of black, but it wasn't part of that range to where the media tells you you're this. Like, what would be the major differences? The differences between a man or a boy raised with just a woman and raised with a woman and a man, his parents.
That person would have a hard time dealing with true criticism. Always wants to hear things that make them feel good or feel better, or there's no introspection dealing with like, that was bad because I was bad. I did that terribly. Like, think about saying that in just generally in terms of female culture in general. Like, where is there that? What part of female culture is there like this thing where like where criticism is looked at as something that can help you improve? If you guys can give me an example, I'd like to hear it. I thought about it for a while because it's like, with boys, it's like you do it everywhere.
It's the men in this country, and I just want to say to the men in this country, just shut up and step up. Do the right thing for a change.
Where you're looking at your behavior as the problem. There's a lot of stuff with guys, though. Right. You've grown up your whole time.
Right. I'm going through that right now.
Yeah, like sports, everywhere you go. Just being socialized as a boy.
Shut up, men. Shut up. And do the right thing for a change. Shut up, men.
Just being a boy, like you gotta think about girls, think about weaker boys than you, you're taught it all the time.
Shut up, men.
At the end of the day, we could talk about the problems, but the solutions are the best thing. So it's kind of like when you think about solutions, you're thinking about like, where do women learn? Where would they have been taught this kind of stuff? And when you really think about it, it's kind of like it's nowhere in society that they're taught it.
Today, I think a lot of younger women, it seems as though they're taught to be tougher than boys and to have this strength and independence and to not even want what a man can offer you. I want you to go out and nobody has to do anything for you. You go out and you get everything yourself, do everything yourself.
But
independent
it's
and be
so
strong.
fake,
Do
though,
this.
right?
Hey, I mean, it is because it has a compounding and sort of a domino effect.
But it's kind of like going back to what you're saying about how the socialization happened. You were saying the girls nowadays are taught like, you know, you could do it all by yourself, you could succeed everything, all this stuff by yourself. Be all about yourself, right? If you think about it, they teach boys and girls different things almost on purpose. In male culture, right? At the top of the lexicon for males, it's kind of like there's this thing where it's like white males are the ultimate evil thing because they've been successful. They do all this stuff, cutthroat. They do whatever they need to do to win, and they control everything. But then, and they're saying that that's bad, right? But then when they're socializing girls, they're saying like, do that, like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Because it's
Right.
and then when I really thought about it, right, it's this thing they're doing throughout society where it's any time where you identify something that someone has done wrong or a group has done wrong, you demonize that group for doing that thing and you just keep it on going even if it's past. But the other side of the issue is you encourage the people who were their so-called victims in this thing to do it back to them. Right. You could keep doing that forever because you could just keep switching the group.
But I did mention before that in order for Democrats or people on the left to have a party, it's kind of a conflict of interest because if they represent disenfranchised, if that wins out and this becomes some sort of better place, they lose a job.
Right.
So it's almost like as if they may have an incentive to almost create chaos.
Oh yeah. There's been an incentive for chaos almost since the beginning of government's existence, right? Because if people don't have conflicts, what's your job? There were no issues and everything was harmonious. The people wouldn't even consider governments. They'd resolve their own problems.
And a lot of times the women are telling me, men don't really have a utility anymore. We don't need y'all because we can protect ourselves. I have my own job. I make more money than a lot of men. I think the government creates a false sense of security. It's all across the United States. How many officers are there? Like 600 and something thousand.
Right. 100 million.
To govern what?
300 million.
20 million people. Obviously that wouldn't work, so people have to believe in
it's like we're under a spell. To me, it goes back to like this: the reason that humans are actually good by nature. People have this like negative outlook on how other people are, but it's kind of like this stuff didn't just happen. It took thousands of years for man to get to this point where we're socialized in this ability where I walk down the street or I drive down the street in a car and I don't just randomly run people over. And there's other aspects of it because there were times when men would just walk around with clubs and hit a woman over her head and drag her back to his cave.
I don't even think that was real.
I mean, listen, it probably existed. I think there had to be a time where that existed. Where
that was.
I knew that he was going to say that.
Club, and you knock the courting process is you just kind of.
Yeah, I mean, before social.
And that's not good.
That's not even the focus. A lot of these examples are people talking about a society that took thousands of years to get to this point. That you could just walk around with mace and be a woman, and
they don't care about.
You know what I mean?
They don't care about.
I'm just saying. I know they are. Right. Let's talk about that. I know they don't care about it. I'm just saying.
Actually,
people don't even think they realize it. I don't think they really think it through. Right? They look at the world as like this place. Right? It's almost backwards. Where that same example, right? A lot of women see the world as this place where men were just these brutalizing things, and things are improving, right? But they were so bad just a short time ago. But if you look back, that's not the case.
Well, I like to say that the government is competing against the men of society. Mm-hmm. When the government is large enough and it becomes corrupt, it tries to pretty much battle or fight or compete against the men for the favor of the women and the children, which basically becomes the following, the next generation. Mm-hmm. So they fight and win a lot of times because they give them things, like they use honey, as I call it. They just give the women and children honey, and they can't see that this stuff is hurting them because it's free.
Right. Wasn't that a normal? That was a normal way of thinking about things back then. Because what a lot of people don't realize is, when you think about how punishment was put on public display, and it was a regular thing where you'd bring your family to go see somebody get hanged, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because back then the mentality of people was that it was okay. It was like, yo, like, the jumping back to racism. If white people came to America and they saw Indians, and they were like, yo, we don't speak the same language, we don't really know how to communicate with them, so we should probably kill them before they kill us, because that was a way of thinking back then. Like, we got to survive here, and the only way that we can survive is, sure, some of us are going to get along with the Native American, but we're not even going to get along with our own people that are coming here after us. But the only way that people understood what to do was to act according to what their mentality was capable of at the time. Because now we're in a different situation where you don't condone, I don't like you, so I'm going to kill you.